Trevor Lawrence is one of the best quarterbacks in college I have ever seen.
43 years of doing this. John Elway is the highest rated quarterback I've ever had. Andrew Luck, Peyton Manning, Trevor Lawrence will be fourth.
The best prospect I've watched at the quarterback spots is Andrew Luck.
I would trade 4 first-round picks for Trevor Lawrence.
Trevor Lawrence is Peyton Manning, Andrew Luck, and Matthew Stafford.
You sure about that? So first things first, you probably read this description, this little heading down below, and you're probably thinking that this kid doesn't know what he's doing, this kid didn't do research, and I just want to say that by no means am I saying Trevor Lawrence is a bad quarterback. By no means am I saying Trevor Lawrence isn't deserving of the first overall pick. Some people might think, like for Sims, that Zach Wilson should be above him, but that's up to your opinion. All I'm curious about is how Trevor Lawrence got this generational tag, this Peyton Manning, John Elway tag, and I don't know why. I'd love for someone to describe it to me. And I tried to do the research. I watched a lot of games. UNC 2019, Pitt 2020, Virginia Tech 2020, Ohio State College Football Playoff 2020, and the Alabama Championship 2019. And I kind of was like, I left just curious. So first, I'm going to attack the thing that I always hear first when I hear or read Trevor Lawrence scouting reports, and that's the height. And they're always like, he has stellar height, phenomenal height, and he does. I would love to be his height, which is 6 foot 5 and 5/8 inches and 220 pounds. That's a good height. Is it a good height for a NFL quarterback? Is the real question. So most people have him as actually 6'6", 6'5", and 5/8 is the pro day heights that he got most recently. So I just took those because I take the most recent heights. And for all the other heights that I researched or used were Pro Football Reference. And I came away scratching my head. So I wanted to see if there was a correlation between height and success in the NFL. And success in the NFL is a Super Bowl. And success in the NFL, individual achievements, is typically the MVP. And so I looked at the past 20 years, and obviously there are going to be some stalwarts: Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Eli Manning twice. And so I counted them as once, and I found the average. And the average for the past 20 Super Bowls, 6 foot 3.5 inches and 227 pounds. So by my rough estimate, that's 3 inches, 2 inches, give or take, and 7 pounds, 2 inches less, 7 pounds more. So that's something. And then MVPs, because I know that there is the whole, well, to have a Super Bowl, you have to have a well-rounded team. So the MVPs, actually shorter, 6 foot 3 inches, 3.2 inches, and 223.8 pounds. So that's 3.8 pounds heavier than Trevor Lawrence is, and 2 and change inches shorter. And so I was curious, like, well then why is 6'5", 6'6" phenomenal height? What makes that so much better? Why is that the first thing that people talk about when they talk about Trevor Lawrence and how he's this generational prospect that will take the Jaguars to the Super Bowl? I don't know. I really do not know. Actually, since 2000, according to The Ringer, since 2000, 23 quarterbacks have measured taller than 6'5" at the combine. Trevor Lawrence measured taller, typically in most accounts, than 6'5". If you're using the pro day, then he measured 6'5" and 5/8, rounding up 6'6". Just 3 out of those 23 went on to start more than 50 games. According to my math, with the new 17-game season, that is literally less than 3 seasons. Right? Like, okay, there is some success on the taller quarterbacks. Justin Herbert, who just had a phenomenal offensive rookie season just last year, won the Rookie of the Year award. He's 6'6", so there are some outliers, and I'm not taking anything away from Trevor Lawrence, and I'm sure that he utilizes his height better than those 23 quarterbacks, 22 if you count out Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert is not included in that 23. And I looked at the tapes. of those 5 games 5 games I mentioned previously. And he does utilize his height. He does look off the safeties. And when you're a taller quarterback, if you don't look off the safeties, your height is actually a burden because those safeties have a much easier way to look at your eyes, figure out where you're going with the ball, figure out what you're reading, figure out the coverage, and figure out if you're figuring out the coverage, So that was just something that I was amazed about because the phenomenal height aspect is quite interesting, especially if this is a generational talent. The first thing that you should that is listed shouldn't be this height or this size because he's also on the lighter end. Now, obviously, he's going to bulk up, and obviously, we've all seen him, and he's endured college football for 3 years, and he's done well in his current weight. But he'll bulk up. So I'm not even going to comment on the weight because it's only about 7 pounds if he wants to win a Super Bowl. So then I read that he steps up in big games. And I sincerely think that this take roots from his freshman season, which I'm sure I do not have to go into detail about because his freshman season, he came onto the scene and won an NCAA championship, which is unheard of. A freshman, a actual legitimate freshman winning a championship is I don't really know. I didn't check, but I don't think it's ever been done before. And so I looked and I watched the games, and I'm not going to take anything away from his freshman championship game because he played very well. But he also did benefit from a far superior team. If you watch the games, the receivers are open. Even his defense picked off Tua twice for a pick 6, I believe one of them was. He played well. He won. But I believe they won by at least over 20 points. So it wasn't just Trevor Lawrence putting his Clemson Tigers on his back. It was more than that. And then I looked at his sophomore season, and I am envisioning I'm going to be popping up the stats, the box scores, and he has a really good QBR this game, but he did... Oh, actually, I'm mistaking. I'm talking about the Ohio State sophomore season college football playoff semifinals. And this is when Justin Fields misread, I believe it was Chris Olave, and threw a pick at the end of the game. Trevor Lawrence has a better QBR than Justin Fields. And so if you're taking QBR as a statistic for his performance, and he did perform 2 touchdowns, I believe, 0 picks for Trevor Lawrence. And then I believe Justin Fields had 1 touchdown and 2 picks. You'd understand that Trevor Lawrence outplayed Justin Fields, but you also have to take into account that Trevor Lawrence got 100+ yards. I think it was 107 yards on the ground and a touchdown, and that's significantly, because QBR, the rating of it, it's significantly influenced by quarterback running, by yards gained on the ground. And that provoked a question, because if you have a generational quarterback, why are you running him for 107 yards? And I understand you do what you got to do to win, but that just didn't click, especially since your quarterback's on the lighter side. Now, this is college, but I don't really know. I'd like to ask Dabo Sweeney that question. And also, in his championship game sophomore year against LSU, Joe Burrow, future #1 overall pick, Joe Burrow, was on a possible Rookie of the Year campaign until he, broke his leg, tore his ACL, all that sad stuff. But Trevor Lawrence did not play well that game. He didn't. This wasn't some fearsome defense. I know that the LSU 2019 team was one of the greatest teams of all time, but they gave up more points to Texas, Ole Miss, Vanderbilt, Alabama, and Oklahoma in 2019. I believe, 25 points. I believe they gave up 38 to Texas. 38, that's 13 less points for a generational quarterback. Texas, Sam Ehlinger, he's a good college quarterback, but he's not exactly a generational quarterback, first-round quarterback, first overall quarterback. That just is confusing to me, because there's the whole narrative that Trevor Lawrence shows up in big games, and I think that people might have some bias from his freshman season. And I'll be honest, his freshman season I didn't really get to watch a lot of, but I watched it recently when I was researching. I watched it trying to see this young freshman quarterback who puts his team on his back and wins. And he won, but he didn't put his team on his back. And then the 2020, or the most recent college football playoff game against Justin Fields again, where Justin Fields was playing on an injury. Trevor Lawrence didn't really wow me. I don't think many people would be wowed by him. I heard people say he played mediocre. Mediocre. That's not exactly something you hear about a generational prospect who is known for winning the big games. But I'd just love to hear some reasoning behind that, because I have nothing against Trevor Lawrence. He just got married over the weekend, and congratulations to him. I watched the video. I was very happy for him. But there's just some confusion there. I think he'll be a very good NFL quarterback. I don't think he will be a Peyton Manning or someone that could become maybe he becomes a stalwart in the league, but I don't think it's fair to him, and it lines up with the tape that he is this generational prospect. And I think that comes from his freshman year and his high school career. And I was interested in that because he's considered one of the highest ranked high school players of all time. And so I looked, and this is according to 247 Sports. He was the 7th highest ranked prospect of all time. There are 6 ahead of him. I'm going to run through them. Jadeveon Clowney. I don't think I need an intro for him. First overall pick. There's, according to, I think it was Ian Rappaport or Adam Schefter, there's some news coming out about him soon, so we'll see where he goes. Robert Nkemdiche, 29th overall pick, who was out of the league after 4 seasons. Rashawn Gary, who was drafted in 2019. He's played 2 seasons, 12th overall pick, and he's been good. He's been good. He hasn't been, 3rd greatest high school football player, great, but he's been good. Vince Young, who was a 3rd overall pick, who played 6 seasons in the NFL. 6 seasons. And he was a Pro Bowl quarterback twice. So that's impressive. 33% of his seasons he was a Pro Bowl quarterback, but he only played for 6 seasons. Ernie Sims was drafted 9th overall, played 7 seasons, went to no Pro Bowls. He didn't live up to that billing. And then the guy before Trevor Lawrence, Ronald Powell. 5th rounder, in the league for 3 years. Now that's not to say that Trevor Lawrence, or these 6 guys, had better college careers than Trevor Lawrence. They didn't. But I think it's unfair to a prospect, and I also think it's unfair to a fan base and just football lovers in general to when you're using generational prospect, you talk about their high school careers, because Zach Wilson's a 3-star. Zach Wilson is not a generational prospect, but he was a 3-star. People learn a lot in 4 years or 3 years, depending on how long you're in college football. And you cannot, I repeat, cannot use high school career to talk about draft stock. It just doesn't line up with history. Of the 6 guys ahead of him, 5 were first rounders, and none changed the league. And then finally, I just wanted to talk about this little graph I found on Twitter. Boom Bear Bill created it and used PFF, and it's just stats. And as you can see, Trevor Lawrence benefited greatly from his surrounding talent. 77% of his yards in the 2020 season were yards after the catch. That is a lot of yards. More than 3 out of every 4 yards of his was after the catch. Like, that's not to take away from Trevor Lawrence. That's just to show that Trevor Lawrence's stats, and he's not even the biggest stat guy, but he just benefited. Travis Etienne. He has a whole bunch of wide receivers who all are NFL caliber wide receivers, good offensive line, good head coach. So he's benefited off of it, just like most wide receivers most quarterbacks coming from big programs have. That just was surprising to me. That was eye-popping, because people compare him to Justin Fields so much, and Justin Fields isn't a generational prospect, but it was just eye-popping seeing the difference between the two. And then those were kind of just some things that I found when I was researching. But I just also wanted to comment on what I saw when I was watching his film. So he does have very good footwork, constant footwork, spectacular footwork. I was wowed by one of his plays where he had an RPO to Travis Etienne, and he jumped and swung his hips and opened his hips 180 degrees, and it was spectacular. I look forward to seeing that for years with James Robinson in the backfield at Jacksonville. But that was the one time he really, really wowed me as a quarterback. He has good touch on passes. He has very good accuracy. Sometimes shows perfect accuracy, but sometimes not so much. He is also, I talked about prior, his running. He does not seem like a runner. He's not like your typical Lamar Jackson. He's not your typical Kyler Murray. But I think that's a good thing, because defenses underestimate that ability. And defenses also have to play to his strengths. Yet they have to play to understand his pass. But he's a strong man. He's tough. He'll run through tackles. He'll put in the effort. And I'm very impressed with that. And he has good touch. But it scares me, a generational prospect, and I'm talking about his running. Especially since now, running and injuries, you don't want to do that to your first overall pick. And Urban Meyer, I don't think you want Trevor Lawrence running a lot, but you got to do what you got to do to win, right? But I just hope that Trevor Lawrence does hit that 50-game season, 50-game career. And then for his cons, sometimes, like in the college football playoff, when he's supposed to be this big thing, this winner, he just didn't give his receivers the opportunity to catch it. And yes, the pass protection was not good, but still, he had some very good throws in the college football playoff. But a lot of times, he just didn't give them an opportunity. That meant that he had mishaps with his accuracy. he had mishaps with his timing. Sometimes he just missed stuff. He missed blitzes. He missed wide open reads. And something that scares me a little is you can just tell that he relies, and a lot of quarterbacks in college do this, he relies on his offensive scheme, his superior offensive scheme, his superior wide receiver to get open. And so he'll just look at the wide receiver the whole time. He gets through his reads just fine. I don't think he gets through his reads and has the anticipation that other quarterback have in this draft class, but that's just me. And just a little note is that college is not the NFL. And I'm all for player safety. And sometimes Trevor Lawrence just will throw his wide receivers into big hits. I think that's something easily fixed. But that's just a little nitty-gritty thing I have. And so I'd love to hear your guys' feedbacks. I'd love to hear where I went wrong, because I am hoping I am wrong. I genuinely am, because this Trevor Lawrence guy, I want him to be a generational talent. I'm young. I haven't really been able to see a generational talent. Andrew Luck was before my time. Well, I was younger. I didn't get to appreciate Andrew Luck. I'd love to see him, but I just don't understand where he's coming from. And I'd love to hear why. But for Jacksonville, I'd be very excited. I'd be very excited if I were Jacksonville, because you're going to get a very good quarterback. Do I think he's the best quarterback in the league? I don't know. Or not in the draft. I don't know. But he has a lot to work with, and I hope he excels in Duville. But I don't understand the Peyton Manning or John Elway. I really don't.